Hi, I'm Kelly Dougherty from Center for Informed Grief. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a fellow in thanatology, which is the study of death, dying, and bereavement. I've been in this field for about 22 years, and I'm really passionate about helping individuals navigate their grief journey. I also have a private practice in upstate New York, where I specialize in working with individuals and groups that have experienced the death of a loved one. And my journey into this field is a personal one. I experienced the death of my mom when I was 14 years old, and that pretty much shaped my life. And the reason I'm talking to you today, I was forced to go to a grief counselor and a grief group by my dad, who saw that I was struggling, and that group changed my life. I finally realized that I wasn't alone in my grief journey and that there were other teens like me who were also grieving the death of a parent. And so that started everything. And my amazing social worker, Rini, asked me to start volunteering with the children's programs. And that's when I knew that this is what I wanted to do with my life. So I pursued my master's in social work from Florida State University and started doing grief counseling throughout my career. And I'm really grateful to be able to talk with all of you today to share my experience and my knowledge about my own personal experiences and all of my years of experience working with grieving individuals. I think this is a topic we don't talk enough about, and we need to make it more accessible and easy to talk about. So thanks for joining us, and I look forward to hearing some of your questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Kelly. My name is Karen Arnold, and I do grief coaching. Been doing that for close to 25 years. I worked for my local hospice for about 17 years and have been running bereavement groups and doing individual one-on-one during that time. So through that time, I feel like I've worked with just about everybody with every type of loss and background, whether it's the loss of a spouse or a parent, a sibling, or a child, sudden loss, long-term illness, somewhere in between, substance abuse, suicide loss. And there's just so many different variables for each person, which makes this process, as you know, very, very unique for individuals. So I think trying to meet a person where they're at with what it is that they're going to be needing, whether that's individual support or a group or some combination of both. And that's what I try to do with my website, Grief in Common, which is a community for grieving people and hopefully a resource. I love to do writing. I love to write, and to write on this subject of grief, I think it's a really good way to be reaching people. I think a big goal for me is just trying to validate this process and normalize this process. Most of the people that I come across feel like they're somehow doing it wrong, that they should be doing it differently, and are not really getting the support that they would hope for from those already in their immediate friends and family. So I was very fortunate to meet Kelly through a book that she authored called The Grief Experience. And I was fortunate to be able to contribute a chapter to that. And I think we found ourselves in very like-minded approaches with our work, and decided that we wanted to collaborate on something. And so that's what we're hoping to do here today by answering questions and, bringing this again to a place where it can be normalized, validated, and make it again part of a discussion, as you said.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something that we need to talk more about because the reality is, what is the one thing that we are all going to experience, right? Is
Yeah.
grief and
Yep.
loss. And
Absolutely.
death is inevitable for all of us. But we shy away from it. We're afraid to talk about it. We don't want to face our own mortality. And then so when we experience a loss, or we have somebody in our life who experiences a loss, we tend to get shy about it and nervous and not know what to say and not know how to act. And so, hopefully, by answering some questions, we're going to be able to help you on your grief journey and maybe even be able to help other people support you
Yeah.
by giving, some feedback and experience from what we hear from our clients, because I think they're the best teachers for all of us because they're going through it firsthand. And I could see multiple clients every day, and they're all having different grief experiences and different reactions and different ways of processing it. And it's really normal. So, Karen, before we start, I have a question that's not on our
Okay.
list, but I would love to hear what your definition of grief is.
Well, that's a great question. I mean, to me, because people ask me this question a lot of times because they're wanting to know if what they're going through is grief.
Mhm.
While I do work primarily with those who his loved one has passed away, there will be times either I'm working with a person and something else happens, like a divorce or a significant life change, maybe a diagnosis of their own, and they're sort of indicating that this feels like grief too. And so to me, I think it's something that we almost sort of inherently know, when we're talking about a big life change, a challenging life change, and things that we didn't ask for and we don't necessarily know how to manage. It's such a big answer because it's like every emotion besides just sadness. And that's what's really confusing to people and then to the people around them. We think it's shedding a few tears. But all of the other things that go with it, the anger and the guilt and the symptoms of exhaustion, things like that. And I know we'll be getting into all of that. But grief is a very big umbrella term for an experience usually following a significant life change. And in our cases, it would be loss.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. How
definitely.
about for you?
Yeah, so I always just say it's, the feelings associated with a loss, right? And that
Yeah.
loss could be the death of somebody. It could be the loss of a job. It could be the end of a relationship, a divorce. It could be somebody moving away. It could be your child going away to college or into the military, right? These losses that we experience all the time, we assume that grief is only about death, but it really isn't. And although what we're probably going to be talking more about is what we call bereavement, right? And bereavement is grief due to death. But grief really it's so many different things. It's not just death. And I do think we need to acknowledge that and be aware of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I say to people a lot is that in the case of a significant loss and in death, once you've had that happen in your life, it touches everything.
Mhm.
So it can be very confusing when this is happening and then there's also changes at work, changes in relationships, changes in the way you manage yourself, your home, even when and where you eat dinner or if you eat it at all. Like all of those things are an extension of your loss. So I find I'm talking to people and sometimes they're like, is it okay to talk about this? Like I'm talking about work. It's like, yeah, because this is grief related.
Exactly.
You may not
Exactly.
see that direct line, but it's there for sure.
Absolutely. I hear that all the time as well. I
Yeah.
know you're a grief counselor, but I'm like, this is ties in it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Even if for sometimes the people are mourning the person that they used to be able to talk to some of these things about or make decisions with,
Exactly.
and needing
All
that
those
place to do
secondary
that.
losses.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a feeling we both do a lot of that,
Yes,
throughout our time.
definitely. So really our goal is to be able to answer questions. So we put out to our communities a request for some questions that they have about grief. And so our goal with this series is that we're going to answer these questions. So if you have more, please put them in the comments or reach out to us and we'll add them to our list. But our goal is to hopefully be able to release videos on a semi-regular basis answering some of these questions.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking forward to it.
All right, so stay tuned.